Hello friends. When Aries man meets Taurus woman, it's like watching fire flirt with earth. Warmth meets stability, passion meets patience, and somehow the two manage to create a spark that's both exciting and grounding. But what makes this pairing so uniquely magnetic in the realm of love? Let's dive deep into the layers of their connection, from that very first glance across a crowded room to the decades they might spend side by side. Chemistry. Initial attraction. The first thing to understand is that Aries men are ruled by Mars, the planet of drive, desire, and unshakable forward momentum. Mars doesn't just gift them with ambition, it infuses them with a certain restless vitality that feels almost electric to those around them. An Aries man rarely drifts quietly into a space, he enters as though he has a mission, an invisible spark in his eyes that commands attention before he even says a word. There is often a distinct sense that he belongs anywhere he chooses to be, as if the world has been arranged to receive his presence. Whether dressed in a sharp suit, casual denim, or something entirely unconventional, he radiates a kind of untamed confidence that doesn't require explanation. Taurus women, by contrast, carry the steady, luxurious influence of Venus, the planet of beauty, harmony, and sensuality. Theirs is not the brash, look-at-me glamour that demands attention with noise and spectacle. Instead, they exude a quieter, more enduring allure, like the glow of candlelight that softens every edge in the room. A Taurus woman may not raise her voice or wave her hands to capture interest, but somehow people notice her anyway. It might be the richness of her laugh, the calm steadiness in her gaze, or the way her movements seem unhurried, as if she knows there's no need to rush when you are already magnetic. When an Aries man and a Taurus woman first cross paths, the air subtly shifts. It isn't necessarily fireworks in the conventional cinematic sense, it's something richer, more layered. For Aries, who lives in a world of rapid impressions and gut instincts, the presence of Taurus feels oddly grounding. Her stillness isn't dull to him, it's intriguing, a serene mystery against his constant motion. There's something in her that refuses to be rushed, and rather than frustrating him immediately, it challenges him in a way he finds deliciously irresistible. Taurus, for her part, is not immune to the raw, forward energy that Aries radiates. She notices him almost instantly, his posture, his intensity, the way his eyes seem to lock onto what they want without hesitation. And though she finds that energy captivating, she also instinctively recognizes that it carries both promise and danger. She admires his boldness, his unapologetic way of being in the world, but a part of her wonders, will this fire burn steadily or flare up and vanish? Her nature is to proceed carefully, to read the unspoken currents before stepping into the stream. This interplay, his pursuit and her deliberate assessment, creates an atmosphere charged with tension. Not the brittle tension of conflict, but the shimmering tension of possibility. It is as if the two of them are standing at opposite ends of a taut silk ribbon, each feeling the pull of the other, each aware that the first step forward could alter the rhythm of everything around them. In their first moments of conversation, the dynamics take shape quickly. Aries, true to his Martian influence, doesn't waste time with safe, polite pleasantries. He asks questions that border on personal, not to intrude, but to cut through the surface layer and get to something real. His humor tends to be quick, playful, sometimes even teasing in a way that dares her to respond in kind. He's not just trying to charm her, he's testing whether she can keep pace with the rapid fire dance of his mind. Taurus, however, has her own quiet form of wit. She may answer slowly, but when she does, it's with a warmth and precision that makes her words feel deliberate. She doesn't compete with his speed, she lets his energy swirl around her like wind around a mountain. And in doing so, she shows him something he rarely experiences, the pleasure of slowing down without losing the thrill. Her smile might not be wide or frequent, but when it appears, it carries weight, an unspoken acknowledgement that she finds him worth engaging. To Aries, this is intoxicating. He is used to winning attention easily, yet here is someone who seems immune to reckless charm, someone whose approval must be earned through patience and authenticity. That kind of resistance only fuels his desire. To Taurus, his relentless interest is both flattering and slightly unsettling. She enjoys his enthusiasm, but she's watching closely, taking mental notes about whether his attention is a fleeting game or the opening act of something real. The chemistry between them at this stage is not just about physical attraction, though that's undeniably present. It's about the meeting of two fundamentally different rhythms. Aries is a drumbeat, urgent and insistent. Taurus is a cello, deep and resonant. Together, they create a sound neither could produce alone. And while neither may be able to articulate it in the moment, each senses that the connection, if pursued, will not be simple. It will demand negotiation between speed and stillness, between impulse and deliberation. But perhaps that's exactly why they can't look away from each other. Aries sees in Taurus the promise of depth he doesn't often find in his whirlwind adventures. Taurus sees in Aries the spark that might coax her out of her carefully tended routines into a world she's never dared to fully explore. This awareness lingers in their gestures, in the way their eyes meet and hold a fraction longer than polite conversation requires. By the end of that first encounter, something unspoken has taken root. Aries leaves with the thrill of a challenge he can't easily predict, a puzzle wrapped in grace. Taurus leaves with the sense of having met someone who could, if she allows it, disrupt her perfectly ordered life in ways that might be dangerous or transformative. Neither says it out loud, but both know they will think about this meeting long after they part. And that's the real spark, not a fleeting burst of heat, but the beginning of a slow, steady flame that could one day light an entire world between them. Emotional dynamics. Aries men live in the fast lane emotionally, and that's not just a poetic metaphor, it's a defining trait. Their inner world is a constant rush of adrenaline, instinct, and raw feeling. When something excites them, it's as if every cell in their body is lit up with a sense of urgency. They want to dive in immediately, experience it fully, and squeeze every drop of emotion from the moment before moving to the next. This applies to love, friendships, ambitions, and even fleeting passions. For Aries, life is not meant to be tiptoed through. It's meant to be charged into headfirst, with a heart wide open and no safety net. This intensity makes them magnetic. People are drawn to the authenticity of their feelings because Aries rarely hides what they feel. Whether they're angry, overjoyed, hurt, or enchanted, you'll know it. But the same trait that makes them thrilling can also make them unpredictable. If their interest wanes or if they sense that something is slowing them down too much, their attention can drift with startling speed. To Aries, the emotional present moment is everything. Yesterday's intensity can be forgotten in favor of today's new spark. Taurus women, by contrast, live in an entirely different emotional climate. They are emotional anchors, steady and enduring, much like the deep roots of a tree that remain untouched by passing storms. They don't rush to conclusions or to feelings. Instead, they allow emotions to settle into them slowly, much like how a fine wine opens up when left to breathe. This is not because they lack passion, but because they know that emotional investments deserve care and time. A Taurus woman will observe, consider, and quietly measure her response before committing. Once she has given her heart, she holds on to it fiercely. Changing her mind about a person or a situation is not something she does lightly. When these two emotional styles meet in a relationship, the result is a fascinating, sometimes challenging dance. Aries, propelled by Mars, pushes forward with a sense of immediacy, eager to live the relationship at full speed from day one. He wants to express his feelings openly, to act on them without hesitation, and to experience the thrill of mutual passion without delay. Taurus, influenced by Venus, slows the pace deliberately. She wants to ensure the ground beneath their emotional feet is solid before taking the next step. Her instinct is to fortify the connection, to nurture it with patience, and to avoid rushing into anything that could crumble under its own speed. At first, this difference can be a source of frustration for Aries. He might feel as if he's revving his engine at a green light while Taurus is still checking the rearview mirror. But with time, many Aries men come to appreciate the gift of her grounding presence. When he's on the verge of reacting impulsively, making decisions in the heat of passion, her calm steadiness pulls him back from potential missteps. She reminds him that not every feeling demands immediate action, that some emotions become richer and more meaningful when given room to unfold. For Taurus, the relationship with Aries can be equally transformative. His energy and willingness to embrace life without fear inject excitement into her routines. She may find herself saying yes to spontaneous road trips, unplanned adventures, or late-night heart-to-hearts that she would never have initiated on her own. Aries encourages her to step outside her comfort zone, to trust her instincts more quickly, and to embrace moments without the safety of a detailed plan. Yet for all their potential harmony, emotional clashes are almost inevitable. Aries' impatience, while exhilarating in the early days, can become a point of tension. When he wants to resolve an issue immediately, sometimes before Taurus has even processed it, he may feel stonewalled by her deliberate pace. In those moments, Aries can interpret her silence or slow response as avoidance or disinterest, even when it's simply her way of carefully choosing her words. From Taurus's perspective, Aries' urgency can feel like pressure, as if she's being asked to deliver emotional clarity before she's ready. This can cause her to dig in her heels even more, not out of spite, but out of a need to maintain her emotional integrity. The more she feels pushed, the more likely she is to retreat into stillness, which only frustrates Aries further. This dynamic, his drive for speed and her need for time, can create a feedback loop of tension if left unchecked. But when they both recognize what's happening, the path to resolution becomes clear. Aries can learn that slowing down doesn't mean losing momentum. It can actually deepen the emotional connection and make the eventual resolution more satisfying. Taurus can learn that offering responses more quickly, even if they are not her final thoughts, can help Aries feel seen and engaged in the process. When they meet each other halfway, something beautiful happens. Their emotional rhythms begin to sync. Aries discovers that not every battle needs to be fought immediately, that some answers are worth waiting for. Taurus discovers that not every decision requires prolonged deliberation, and that sometimes trusting her first instinct can lead to joy. In this balance, Aries finds the grounding he secretly craves, a safe harbor for his passionate storms. Taurus finds the spark she didn't know she needed, a gentle push toward embracing the unknown. Their emotional connection becomes not just a blending of fire and earth, but a living, evolving force that adapts to challenges without losing its core. In this shared emotional space, they both become better versions of themselves, Aries more patient, Taurus more adventurous, and that, perhaps, is the truest measure of compatibility. Long-term compatibility. Over the long haul, the relationship between an Aries man and a Taurus woman can feel like constructing a home that not only rests on solid ground but is oriented perfectly toward the sunrise. It's not just about durability, it's about creating a life together that feels both secure and inspiring. Taurus, with her deep-rooted sense of responsibility and steady nature, provides the bedrock upon which their shared life can be built. She ensures that the essentials, trust, loyalty, and a sense of belonging, are firmly in place. Aries, with his boundless enthusiasm and hunger for new horizons, brings the fresh light that keeps their days vibrant. His energy is like the morning sun spilling through the windows, casting warmth over the sturdy structure they've built. In the long term, these qualities can intertwine in beautiful ways. Taurus values consistency, not out of fear of change, but because she understands that true contentment often comes from the small, reliable rhythms of life. She takes comfort in traditions, whether they're as simple as Sunday breakfasts together or as elaborate as yearly anniversary trips to the same cherished place. Aries, however, thrives on motion and growth. He measures life by the challenges overcome, the goals achieved, and the adventures embarked upon. At first glance, these inclinations seem at odds, one grounded, the other restless. But here's the secret to why they can last. Their differences don't necessarily clash, they can actually dovetail into a deeply fulfilling dynamic. Aries shows Taurus that change is not an enemy to be feared, but a doorway to new experiences. He encourages her to step outside her comfort zone, to see that stability doesn't have to mean stagnation. Taurus, in return, teaches Aries that stability can be liberating, not limiting. She reveals that a well-built foundation doesn't trap you, it gives you the freedom to take risks because you always have something steady to return to. This push and pull becomes the heartbeat of their long-term life together. Imagine decades in, Taurus keeping the home life harmonious and secure, ensuring that their financial base is strong and their commitments honored, while Aries injects the relationship with bursts of novelty, planning unexpected trips, initiating new joint ventures, or suggesting bold lifestyle changes. The constant interplay of these energies keeps them from slipping too far in either direction. Without Aries, life could become too predictable for Taurus. Without Taurus, life could become too chaotic for Aries. However, longevity does not mean smooth sailing. Over years, the very traits that draw them together can also cause friction. If Aries clings too stubbornly to his pace, refusing to slow down when the relationship needs it, Taurus may begin to feel that her stability is being undermined. Conversely, if Taurus becomes too attached to her routines and resists change entirely, Aries may feel boxed in, his natural drive for growth stifled. These moments can spiral into cycles of frustration, with each partner digging deeper into their default tendencies. What determines whether this pairing thrives or struggles decades in is their willingness to evolve together. Successful long-term Aries-Taurus couples often reach a point where compromise becomes second nature. Aries learns to pause, not out of resignation, but because he recognizes the value of savoring the present and building on what they've already accomplished. Taurus learns to take calculated leaps, understanding that some changes, even the uncomfortable ones, can strengthen the bond rather than threaten it. The beauty of this combination over time is that they can provide each other with exactly what they lack. Aries gains a home base that is steady enough to allow him to explore the world without fear of losing everything. Taurus gains a partner who refuses to let life grow dull, someone who will pull her gently, or sometimes enthusiastically, into moments she would have otherwise missed. Together, they create a rhythm that balances excitement with security, movement with stillness. In the later chapters of their life together, these qualities can translate into a relationship that feels both comforting and alive. Friends and family might notice that theirs is the couple who always seems solid yet never stale, grounded yet glowing. This is not because they never face problems, but because they have learned how to lean into each other's strengths rather than fixating on each other's weaknesses. Aries doesn't try to turn Taurus into a mirror of himself. Taurus doesn't try to make Aries conform to her pace. Instead, they meet in the middle, creating a shared life that belongs uniquely to them. Ultimately, their long-term compatibility is less about being perfectly matched from the start and more about their capacity to grow alongside one another. When they actively appreciate what the other brings to the table, when they choose partnership over ego, the decades only deepen their bond. And in those moments, sitting together on a porch, watching yet another sunrise, both may quietly realize that they've built something rare. A life that is not only steady enough to last, but bright enough to inspire them to keep dreaming together. Communication conflict resolution. Here's where things get tricky and fascinating. Communication between an Aries man and a Taurus woman is like pairing a live wire with a grounding rod. Sparks are inevitable, but so is the potential to create something steady and illuminating if they understand each other's nature. Aries men are, by design, direct. They live under the rulership of Mars, a planet that thrives on action, clarity, and the straightest possible path to any goal. To an Aries, words are tools for movement, not ornaments. If he feels something, he says it, often within seconds of the thought forming. This bluntness isn't necessarily meant to wound. Rather, it comes from a belief that truth should be delivered unfiltered so that everyone can deal with reality as it is. The trouble is, what feels refreshingly transparent to Aries can feel jarring, or even abrasive, to a Taurus woman. She too values honesty, but hers is filtered through the influence of Venus, a planet that teaches the art of tact, diplomacy, and emotional nuance. To her, words are not just carriers of meaning, they're carriers of tone, timing, and emotional safety. She believes that how something is said can be just as important as what is said. So, while Aries might believe that blurting out a problem in the middle of a heated moment is being real, Taurus might interpret the same act as reckless, even disrespectful. In moments of conflict, these differences become sharply visible. Aries, uncomfortable with lingering tension, tends to go on the offensive, not necessarily with anger, but with insistence. He may raise his voice without realizing it, lean in physically, and use body language that screams, "Let's deal with this now." For him, postponing the conversation feels like letting the problem grow fangs. His internal mantra is, "If we talk it out now, we can fix it now." Taurus, however, reacts almost in the opposite manner. When emotions run high, her instinct is to slow the exchange down, to retreat slightly so she can process the situation from a place of calm. This is not avoidance, it's emotional self-preservation. She knows that if she responds too quickly in a heated moment, she may say something she can't take back, or worse, make a decision she doesn't truly mean. So, she steps back, perhaps growing quiet, perhaps leaving the room altogether. To Aries, who is pressing for resolution, this sudden quiet can feel like a door slamming in his face. This sets up the classic chaser and distancer dynamic. Aries becomes the chaser, pressing harder, asking more questions, repeating his points with greater intensity, trying to break through what he sees as a wall. Taurus becomes the distancer, pulling further away the more she feels pressured, digging into her silence like a protective shell. The more he pushes, the more she retreats, and the more she retreats, the more he pushes. It's a cycle that can turn a small disagreement into a prolonged standoff. The key to breaking this loop lies in understanding the emotional meaning behind their styles. Aries must learn that Taurus's silence is not necessarily a verdict or a rejection. It's often simply a request for space to think, to feel, and to find the right words. It's not an exit from the relationship, it's an investment in preserving it. Taurus, in turn, must recognize that for Aries, silence can feel like abandonment in the middle of an important moment. When he is met with no response, his mind may leap to worst-case scenarios. She's shutting me out, or she doesn't care enough to engage. When they master the art of pausing without disconnecting, everything changes. For Aries, this might mean practicing the discipline of holding space, telling Taurus, "I hear you need time. I'll give it, but let's come back to this in an hour." For Taurus, it might mean offering small reassurances during her processing time. "I'm not ready to respond yet, but I'm still here, and we'll talk soon." These little adjustments can prevent misunderstandings from snowballing into emotional distance. Over the years, the couples who thrive in this pairing often develop a kind of emotional protocol for conflict. They know each other's triggers and adapt accordingly. Aries learns to modulate his tone, to channel his passion into clarity rather than force. Taurus learns to shorten the length of her silences, to give enough verbal cues that Aries doesn't feel stranded. Together, they learn to see disagreements not as battles to win, but as puzzles to solve, puzzles that require both speed and patience. And when they get it right, their conflicts become some of the most constructive moments in their relationship. Aries' drive ensures that nothing festers for too long. Taurus' steadiness ensures that no hasty decision tears apart something worth keeping. They balance urgency with consideration, emotion with reason. In the end, their differences in communication aren't just quirks to be tolerated, they're complementary tools that, when used together, can build a bond far stronger than either could create alone. Physical intimate connection. If you're wondering whether sparks fly between an Aries man and a Taurus woman, the answer is yes, without hesitation. But those sparks don't simply flash and vanish, they burn in rhythms as distinct as the elements that rule them. Aries, the embodiment of fire, approaches intimacy the same way he approaches life itself, boldly, passionately, and with an unyielding sense of adventure. For him, physical closeness is not just an act, but an expression of vitality, a channel through which he pours his restless energy and unfiltered desire. He is eager to explore, to try new things, to turn intimacy into a space of excitement and constant motion. Taurus, by contrast, is ruled by Earth and Venus, and her approach to intimacy reflects those influences. She moves more slowly, more deliberately, and in a way that is steeped in sensuality. For her, physical connection is not something to be rushed through, it is something to savor, to experience with every sense engaged. She notices the warmth of skin, the weight of a shared touch, the lingering pause between breaths. While Aries might want to leap into the fire, Taurus prefers to build it log by log, ensuring that it burns steadily and warmly rather than flaring up and fading too soon. When these two meet in the physical realm, the initial attraction is often magnetic. Aries is drawn to the understated yet powerful sensuality of Taurus. There is something in her presence, her scent, her voice, her steady gaze, that suggests a deep well of pleasure waiting to be unlocked. Taurus, on the other hand, is intrigued by Aries's raw, unfiltered energy. His confidence and willingness to take the lead can be intoxicating, even if she instinctively wants to slow the pace. The very differences in their rhythms create a pull that neither quite understands but both feel intensely. The key to turning this attraction into a lasting, fulfilling intimate connection lies in their ability to meet each other in the middle. Aries can learn from Taurus the value of slowing down, of allowing the anticipation to build, of savoring each moment rather than rushing toward the peak. In doing so, he discovers that pleasure can be as much about the journey as the destination. Taurus, in turn, can learn from Aries how thrilling it can be to step outside her usual tempo, to allow spontaneity and even a little recklessness into the mix. She learns that sometimes, surrendering to the heat of the moment can be just as satisfying as carefully cultivating it. When they find this balance, their physical connection can become something rare, a union that blends intensity with depth, excitement with intimacy. Aries brings the spark that ignites passion. Taurus brings the steadiness that keeps it burning through the night. Together, they create a rhythm that is both thrilling and deeply nourishing, each encounter a mix of fireworks and candlelight. Over time, this physical bond has the potential to remain one of the core strengths of their relationship. Where other couples might let routine dull their connection, Aries's adventurous spirit and Taurus's sensual patience keep theirs alive. They may go through phases where one's rhythm temporarily overtakes the other's, periods where Aries's urgency dominates, or times when Taurus's pace sets the tone, but their attraction has a way of pulling them back into harmony. This is not just about physical pleasure, it's about trust. In their most intimate moments, Aries learns to trust the grounding presence of Taurus, feeling safe enough to let down his guard. Taurus learns to trust Aries's fiery passion, knowing he will carry her beyond the borders of her comfort zone without abandoning her there. That trust deepens over the years, making their physical connection not only an expression of desire but also a reaffirmation of their bond. For Aries, the joy comes in discovering that slowing down doesn't mean losing excitement, it can make it last longer. For Taurus, the joy comes in realizing that a little unpredictability can awaken new dimensions of pleasure she didn't know existed. Together, they create a space where desire is renewed, where even after years, they can still look at each other with that same spark in their eyes as the first time they met. Shared values, life goals. When it comes to values, the Taurus woman's compass is firmly set toward security in every dimension of life, financial stability, emotional reliability, and a sense of domestic peace that forms the backdrop for everything else. She doesn't just want a roof over her head, she wants a home that feels lived in, loved in, and shielded from unnecessary chaos. She prefers a future that she can map out clearly, with milestones that feel achievable and purposeful. Her relationships, above all else, must be rooted in trust. Without trust, no amount of passion, wealth, or excitement will hold her interest. She wants to know that the person she chooses will stand beside her when storms come, not just when the sun is shining. The Aries man's value system moves at a different frequency. For him, life is measured not by how still the waters remain, but by the waves he dares to ride. He prioritizes personal achievement, not just in terms of career or finances, but in proving to himself that he can meet and overcome any challenge that comes his way. He thrives on growth, adventure, and experiences that stretch the boundaries of what he's known. To Aries, the idea of a meaningful life often includes chasing opportunities, exploring unfamiliar places, and pursuing goals that feel a little out of reach. While Taurus finds comfort in the familiar, Aries finds inspiration in the unknown. At first glance, these core values might appear mismatched. Taurus's desire for stability could seem, to Aries, like an anchor that holds him in one place for too long. Aries' craving for challenge and adventure could seem, to Taurus, like a constant disruption to the peaceful life she wants to build. Yet beneath these surface-level differences lies a strong current of shared principles that can unite them. Both value loyalty, not in a casual sense, but as a defining pillar of their lives. Once they commit fully, and they expect the same in return. Both are fiercely protective of the people they love, willing to stand in the path of danger or hardship to shield their partner and family. Both want a life that feels not just comfortable, but meaningful, filled with purpose they can be proud of. The challenge lies in aligning their timelines and approaches to life. Taurus may be ready to settle into a long-term plan earlier, eager to put down roots and watch them grow. She may want to buy a home, start a family, and establish traditions that will carry them forward for decades. Aries, while fully capable of loyalty and commitment, might still feel the pull of personal goals he hasn't yet achieved. He might want to travel more, test his limits in new ventures, or take professional risks before he feels ready to lock into a fixed routine. If they are not aware of this difference, tension can arise. Taurus might see Aries' continued pursuit of adventure as a reluctance to commit fully. Aries might see Taurus's push for stability as an attempt to confine him before he's explored all he wants to explore. The danger is not in their values themselves, but in the assumption that the other should naturally move at the same pace. The key to harmony is deliberate, collaborative planning. They must actively weave both sets of needs into their shared vision of the future. This could mean creating a lifestyle where periods of stability are punctuated by bursts of adventure. They might spend a few years focusing on building a home and financial security, followed by a season of travel or bold new projects that feed Aries' need for movement. In turn, Aries must be willing to anchor himself during the phases where Taurus's need for steadiness is greatest, such as raising children or establishing a lasting home base. When they succeed in finding this balance, the results can be extraordinary. Taurus brings to Aries' ambitions a grounding force that keeps them from being mere whims. She helps him see that achievement is more fulfilling when it has a place to belong, a home to return to, a partner to share it with. Aries brings to Taurus's plans a sense of vitality and openness that keeps them from becoming rigid routines. He shows her that stability doesn't have to mean sameness, and that a shared life can be both secure and filled with surprises. Over time, their shared values form the spine of a relationship that can weather change without losing its shape. They will have moments of negotiation, times when one must yield more than the other, but if they keep their eyes on the bigger picture, they will see that they are moving toward the same horizon, just taking slightly different paths to get there. That horizon is one of mutual respect, shared purpose, and a deep sense of partnership that blends Earth's endurance with fire's drive. By consciously designing a life that honors both Taurus's need for a safe harbor and Aries' need for open seas, they ensure that neither feels trapped and neither feels neglected. In this way, their shared values and life goals become not a compromise, but a fusion, a blueprint for a life that is as strong as it is adventurous, as steady as it is alive. Final thoughts. An Aries man and a Taurus woman may not be the simplest pairing in the zodiac, but simplicity is not necessarily the hallmark of great love. Their relationship is not built on an easy sameness or a mirroring of personalities. It's built on contrast, on the fascinating interplay between fire and earth, movement and stillness, impulse and deliberation. They are, in many ways, the embodiment of how two people with different approaches to life can forge a bond that is stronger precisely because it is forged in the fires of negotiation, adaptation, and mutual discovery. It's true that they may never fit the description of a seamless, frictionless couple. Aries' boldness can at times feel overwhelming to Taurus's deliberate nature, and Taurus's measured pace can sometimes feel restrictive to Aries' adventurous spirit. Yet it is within these very differences that their greatest potential lies. The friction they generate is not the kind that erodes a relationship, it's the kind that polishes it, creating a shine that only emerges when two forces rub against each other in just the right way. Aries teaches Taurus lessons she might never seek out on her own. He invites her into moments of spontaneity, where decisions are made not with weeks of contemplation but with the thrill of a single heartbeat. He shows her that change does not have to be feared, that it can be embraced as a doorway to growth, and that risks sometimes yield the most beautiful rewards. In his presence, she learns to lean into uncertainty just enough to discover that life can be richer when it's not fully scripted. Taurus, in turn, offers Aries something he doesn't always realize he needs: the gift of slowing down, of anchoring himself in a moment long enough to let its meaning sink in. She teaches him that patience is not the enemy of progress, that planning is not the death of adventure, and that building something that lasts requires more than passion, it requires consistent care. In her presence, he learns that stability can be liberating, because it gives him a secure base from which to leap toward his next dream. It's not a perfect match in the fairy tale sense, but perfection itself is overrated and often fleeting. What they have instead is something more enduring: potential. The potential to grow together, to challenge each other in ways that make them more complete individuals, and to weave a life that is both grounded and alive with possibility. They can craft a love that shifts with the seasons, bursting into bloom in the spring of new beginnings, steady and full in the summer of shared joy, resilient in the autumn of change, and quietly enduring through the winter of challenges. The success of their partnership is not predetermined by their zodiac signs, but by the choices they make daily. If they approach their union with mutual respect, a willingness to compromise without losing themselves, and a genuine appreciation for the ways in which they differ, they can create a connection that thrives for decades. In this space, arguments become opportunities to understand each other better, and their shared life becomes a canvas where both contribute colors the other would never have chosen alone, but together, create a masterpiece. And maybe that's the quiet magic of an Aries man and a Taurus woman. Fire and earth, elements that might seem incompatible at first glance, do more than simply coexist. When they meet with openness and intention, they create something entirely new, a shared world that could not have existed without both of them. In that world, the warmth of Aries' flame is grounded by the stability of Taurus' soil, and the solidity of Taurus' earth is illuminated by the light of Aries' fire. Together, they don't just endure, they build, they evolve, and they create a love that is unmistakably their own.